What's up, you guys? We're here at Art Space 304 in Carbondale, about to talk to Antonio Martinez. We're gonna do a little walkthrough and have a little sit-down talk. Rachel's here behind the camera. Let's do it. Go. Art Space 304 with Antonio Martinez, the artist here. We're going to have a walkthrough of passing through shadow.
Oh, thanks for inviting me back. This is great.
You've seen Antonio on the podcast a few times. I think this is the third time you're back on. So
right.
Third time, let's go. So let's check out this awesome art. So how did this project get started?
That's a really good question. So Chuck Benya, who's the director at Art Space 304, I'm going to get this fly. Any fly lovers out there, apologize if I kill this fly.
Oh,
did I get it?
I think you got it, but there it is again.
Oh, dang it. That's going to be the episode where Luke and Antonio fight a fly. No, but seriously, Chuck Benya is the director of Art Space 304, and he found out about Simon's Foundation, and he contacted me. He was very familiar with my work, so then he asked if I knew of a scientist who could possibly partner up, and I immediately thought of Bob Baer, given his expertise from the 2017 Eclipse. So the objective was it was a little murky in the first few months of what exactly Simon's Foundation was looking for, because anyone who's saw the 2017 Eclipse, how do you make a piece of work that can compete with something in the cosmos? That's a pretty tall order.
I don't think we can.
Yeah, no, we can't. Yeah.
A different league.
Yeah, that is
completely.
Yeah, absolutely. So
no way. We could just try glimpses of representation.
So there was a point off camera. I had mentioned all these websites and articles and watching YouTube and trying to figure out what materials, what can I possibly do to compete with that. And I was okay, there's a lot of...
Yeah, how do you start?
Yeah. I forget which university, but they were actually creating the high energy plasma explosions that happens on the surface of the sun. They're
dividing atoms together.
There's a university, there's scientists who are actually doing that, and I'm wow.
Fascinating physics research.
How can is that possible to make art using that technology? Of course, I'm not in this. I'm not going to do this to
I like the way you think. That's mind blowing.
Yeah. So I pull back.
Sure.
Okay, what's within budget? What's within scope?
What's the scope? Right.
What's within
Shoot
the
for the stars, though.
Yeah.
When you start, let that be known. Shoot for the stars.
Try not to
and work with it.
Die in the process.
Don't burn up.
Yeah, don't burn up. So the Simon's Foundation put out this call. It was nationwide, from what I understand.
Okay.
And various art community houses, they applied, and they were, I believe, everyone that knew about it, they were given $10,000 just to develop their idea to produce a final proposal. So it went through another line of submissions that I can't remember if it was 6 or 7 art venues were selected as finalists.
That's amazing.
So Carbondale, we were one of the top finalists. And
that is incredible.
they actually flew us out, the three of us, to upstate New York for a retreat.
Oh, wow.
So we got to meet the other teams of scientists and directors. So there's an organization down in Austin, and I think there's one in Vermont and also Maine. So it's really interesting. So a lot of these community houses or institutions are along the path of totality. So not everyone's doing photography and sculpture. Some are producing there may be a performance, a music programming or a
But
book.
is it all related to the eclipse?
Yep, all
That
related
is
to
so
the
neat.
eclipse. In some way, it could be the science of the sun or the science of the moon, or in our case, it's a bit of everything.
So tell me about that. This crossroads, in many ways, it sounds like the crossroads of not only totality, but also the crossroads of science and arts.
Right.
Can you talk more about that in this specific project?
Yeah, so I know I wanted to do something that would honor First Nations and Native Americans. I feel like their presence needs to be in the public more. And being fascinated with the folklore. In 2017, we had an SIU professor, anthropologist. He gave a talk about the Aztec or Mexica culture in the jaguar, and that's always stuck with me when I first learned about that. I was like, well, this can't be the only story dealing with animals swallowing the sun. So, just kind of hit the books or hit the internet, hit the library, and try to identify other Native American cultures that had similar stories.
That's so cool. Making sense of what is this phenomena and those stories built around that.
Right.
And tying it into, you've pulled from that history as we've seen on the walkthrough.
Right.
I think it's incredible, man. This is one of the coolest pieces I've seen ever.
And it wouldn't be possible without, I think what helps ground it even more, makes it even more fascinating, is the science that's kind of interwoven with Fred Espenak's maps. It blew my mind that we have the science and technology and the math where one could do a deep dive back in history and know where the eclipse occurred, whether it was total eclipse or an annular eclipse, and also looking forward to the year 3000 where it's going to be. I forgot to mention in our walkthrough, there's one empty vestibule. There's no sculpture there. It's that Fred Espenak map is for the year 3000 AD. And that annular eclipse is going to pass through, I think, Brazil or somewhere in South America. And the intention to leaving it blank with no sculpture was kind of that's really well into the future. Will there be a rainforest in year 3000, given that it's running through South America? And also, that's kind of the dialogue that I wanted to kind of leave open.
Sure.
And also maybe the children who are going to inherit the earth, would like for them to maybe investigate what native indigenous cultures, mythologies surrounding the phenomena of the eclipse exist in South America. The majority of the Native American stories here are Northern America. Just paying homage and honor to First Nations.
Yeah, those maps are so cool. I mean, there's a through line of you researching history here and setting out for the future of what could be, hopefully, in the next year 3000.
Year 3000.
I think it's awesome, man. And how did he come up with those maps? What was there calculations involved?
I don't know
how does
what
one
the math
come about that?
I don't know. I've only reached out to him to seek permission to he has
And you mentioned this project, and he has been featured in. You said the New York Times is coming here.
That Bob Baer is.
Sorry.
New York Times is going to come for the Eclipse 8th, the big show time
which is all leading up to.
Yeah.
Right. This is part of that big promotion.
This is part of it, and that's part of what Simon's Foundation is wanting. Their goal is to excite the general public about science and art with this big cosmic event. What better opportunity to really intrigue the general population.
I think it's awesome, and it's a unifying point that people can get around, and everyone can be mesmerized or in awe by just by looking up. And we do have these glasses. Shout out to Simon.
Right.
Simon's Foundation.
Yep, they provided these. No
You're gonna need those if you don't have them.
Yeah, if you need some, Art Space 304 apparently has some of these viewing glasses.
Again, shout out to Art Space 304 for letting us do this,
Mm-hmm.
for having this type of showing. I think it's so cool.
Another sponsor is Bentera Bank too. They
Okay.
also helped with this
awesome.
exhibition. So we have a local sponsor as well. So
It's amazing.
yeah, a lot of parts and pieces like this. It's really easy for a general public to like come to installations, read the verbiage, see the
Sure.
photos, and like, oh well, this is it. I mean, some people are like, oh, this is amazing, but oh my gosh, just the process of doing all this, I can't tell you. Like,
And that's where I love. I'm obsessed with the process of that. So I'm so honored to be able to hear it firsthand from getting a private showing from you, Antonio. It's just been awesome.
So there's one story just to like capitalize on the process. So I have a newborn, which you're well aware. She was born in June.
And thank you for taking the time away today for being able to do that. I know childcare is not that cheap these days.
No, it's not cheap, and there's not a lot of. All the places are full. There were points where we didn't have daycare, and so I brought the daycare here. And so baby Rhea was in her little playpen, or I had her in the Bjorn, and she was, as I was painting the mural, she was here.
That's awesome.
Trying to work in between when she naps, and my wife at the time also had some medical issues, so I had to chauffeur her to work. I had to be present with her. So, being a caretaker for both spouse and child, there was a lot in creating this installation. So
yeah.
There was a lot. But the story I wanted to tell you about that really capitalized the dedication to the arts is that Jaguar clay figure. I don't have a studio right now. The design faculty in the School of Art and Design, they had an empty office, which was sizable, and they allowed me to occupy it, which I'm absolutely grateful for, because that gave me access to some of the design faculty that knows how to work the 3D printer and the laser cutter, the laser etching.
Which is just such a cool piece of this process with the sculptures.
Yeah.
The 3D, you showed me a little bit behind the scenes. Maybe we could throw some of that footage in here.
Absolutely.
Of how you went through that, but yeah.
So studio space is critical. I didn't have much of a space. So before I was even given that space, once the fall semester started, I have a small room or space in the back of my house. It's currently where I sew quilts, make quilts. But there's a small corner on a table, a little shorter than this, and it's adjacent to our bedroom, and there's a window which light can peek through. So the only time I can like work was usually when people went asleep. So when my wife and the child went to sleep, but that window would allow too much light to come in. I'd get a text from April, who's laying in bed on the other side of the door, saying, "Hey, there's too much light. Can you turn that off?" It's like, and I'm like trying to sculpt this Jaguar, so I could turn the light switch off. And I use some LED lights there on the base floor, and she texts like, "Still too bright, you're gonna wake up baby." I'm like, oh my gosh.
Man.
So I turn that off and like, well, how am I gonna, so I find like a headlamp. So I think I have a photo or a video. Let's see if I can find it and share it with you. I'm sculpting in the dimmest light. All I have is a headlamp, and I'm just sculpting away. So those are like, what an artist does, because they have a deadline. They know they need to meet these deadlines, and they just carve out time. So it's that dedication that really keeps you going. But I'm super grateful for being given some studio space, even though it's temporary, but that definitely made the difference. So I'm sure there's a lot of artists who listen and watch your podcast may relate to that. There's a huge need for studio space, like low rent studio space, because that makes the biggest difference for any artist. There's a shortage of it in Southern Illinois. I mean, there's some recent like MFA alumni. They like the area because of the cost of living. But they mention like the lack of studio space that's affordable and even available.
I
don't know if Marion has the same situation.
Well, I guess it just depends on what's affordable. What is even the market for that?
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest, because I don't know of any studio spaces for rent.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
To be honest, I can't think of any.
I mean, we're in the process.
Which we're tapped into the arts. We should know.
Well, I've looked. The old high school in Carbondale.
Is that right?
We don't live too far from there, and always imagine like, well, if they converted those to like art spaces, but I know it has issues. And I think it's going to be like
this podcast
demolished.
Yeah, I've heard that too. But this podcast has been a tool for creativity, and also dreaming what could be. So potentially, Antonio, this conversation we're having could be a spark for anybody.
Catalyze, yeah.
To create more conversation, to create more energy around, and just more dialogue on where's the space, where can we do, and we'll see what happens. Right. So I'm glad we're having this conversation for many reasons.
Yeah.
That being one of them. Because we do have some studio space, but we do some events. It's hard to find a niche that's really just going to keep the lights on.
Right. Sustainable, and
that's the key word.
Yeah, I know.
Do what you got to do to get by.
Well, I mean, ArtSpace has the 607 location that will soon. Oh, it'll be a maker space.
That's cool.
It's not going to be as big as taking an old high school and converting it to multiple studios.
I think we need to don't forget to dream big. When any of these projects, whether it's the Hydron Collider, and starting there and working backwards from, or a studio space. I think wish for the moon, you'll land in the stars, which kind of wraps back into this project. Is there any other? Speaking of upcoming Eclipse, are there any other Eclipse events, or what are you doing for the Eclipse?
Oh my gosh!
What events are you hearing about? Are you excited about? What do people need to know?
Okay, so.
I heard there might be a stadium involved.
Yeah, there's a stadium involved. I agreed to do a live mural along with Maddie Dieters, who's also she did the mural just on the other side of this building.
Super talented mural artist, incredible. If you've seen any murals in Southern Illinois, Belleville, beyond.
Yeah.
Incredible young artist. I love the one that's here.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It's very fitting. Especially for this installation.
It's perfect.
So she and I will be doing live murals during the duration of the Eclipse. I think we'll be given somewhat of a head start because if anyone's done a mural, even though it's going to be like an 8-foot by 8-foot square, it takes some logistics and definitely takes some time. So that will be some entertainment.
That's awesome. At Saluki Stadium.
At the Saluki Stadium. Yep.
In front of
I don't know.
15,000?
15,000, 40,000, 100,000? I don't know. A million? But probably more than that 15,000.
It's awesome. And I've heard all the hotels are booked.
Yeah.
Basically, at this point, there's campgrounds are selling out.
Someone had posted
it's going to be a big thing, man.
Was there like a $1,900 room?
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Like really?
I saw some camp spots for $500 for 10 by 20.
Oh my gosh. If you had some property, just get some spray paint and like create some squares and like.
Oh man.
Jeez.
So that's exciting. So check that out. If you're looking for a place, whether you're local or visiting, LSI alumni, Stadium would be a great place to do that. I'll be at my aunt's place. We're having a little get together there. That'll be fun. I'll try to get some pictures too. Yeah. But it should be one for the books and one for history.
It will.
No doubt.
We're talking about the spring peeper frogs. They'll be out. They'll be loud, as well as the double brooding of the cicadas. So if you don't want to be in the stadium, you kind of want a more, I want to say quieter
nature
place.
vibe. On the water.
There's plenty of lakes around here. Find a nice spot.
There's no shortage of places to sit, enjoy, and be amazed by the wonder of creation.
That cosmic hush will, wow, it will.
It'll humble you.
Yeah, it will.
It'll humble you. Antonio, this has been great. Any other plugs, anything here at the end?
Well, I think we hit it all. I think Simon's, SIU, School of Art and Design, SIU. This obviously wouldn't be possible without them because they definitely provided studio space and access to some of their equipment. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you for what you're doing in this area.
Yeah.
It's definitely, you're very instrumental in promoting the arts.
Awesome. Appreciate you saying that. Appreciate you doing this again. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rachel, for being behind.
Thank you, Rachel, for being our camera person.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace.